Good morning. This is video number 6. We've had a house guest all of this week so far, so I haven't had time to sit down and do too much with videos. This particular guest is pretty demanding, actually, so it demands a lot of time, so I spend a lot of time with him. What I would like to talk about today is it's a symptom that I had for a very, very long time. It hung around for a long time for me, and a lot of people have questions about it because it's one of those. It's just one of the weirder symptoms, derealization. And for me, the derealization, dizziness for some reason also went along with this, like an off balance, wonky, strange kind of feeling. So my derealization, I know everybody feels it a bit differently. But for me, it was a feeling of being disconnected with the world, with other people, when it was at its worst in withdrawal, when I was in acute and in the first several months of withdrawal, it was almost like being disconnected from myself. It was like, not like I was two people, but like I just was not connected somehow. And also the dizziness, the off balance feeling for me went along with it. And there was this kind of floaty, bubbly sort of thing too, where I'm like in a bubble or I'm floating and kind of observing the world, almost like observing myself, even though I'm not visually observing myself. I wasn't. It felt like that. It felt like I'm not. It's like you're here, but it feels like you're not here. You're just like looking at where you are. So anyway, so that's how it felt for me. I started experiencing derealization long before I was on a benzo. Long time before. Probably about. Don't freak out over this because this is just me. Okay. About 1990, I was getting this disconnected, dizzy kind of weird feeling, especially when I would walk. And it was starting to freak me out because it just would not go away. And I know that it was from all of the drinking that I did at the time. Even back in 1990, I drank a lot. So I freaked out. I went to the doctor. He sent me for an MRI for my brain. That was okay. I had something called a nystagmus test for. I'm not even sure what that was about. That was okay. And there were other tests too that I can't remember. And I came back, they all came back normal, that there was nothing wrong there. So from 1990 through 1997, I lived with this. It wasn't super bad, but it was just like you don't feel quite right. You feel kind of wonky and a little bit off balance, kind of disconnected from the world, kind of floaty. So in 1997, I had some trouble at work, like with a work project. This is in the book. Our daughter became a teenager. We had some difficulty there, and those two things, I started drinking even more, and I started getting panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and so on. I went to the doctor because, a panic attack's scary. You don't know what it is, and they put me on Xanax and an antidepressant. And then there was the 18 months of being on all kinds of stuff. But all during that time, I still had the derealization. It never left. The dizziness never really left. And that went on, believe it or not, the whole time I was on Klonopin for 13 years. So I had this derealization is what it was. It really was, for all the way up into 2010, and then it took another. After I got off the Klonopin, it took another about 30 months, about 2.5 years to get off or to get rid of the derealization. It finally faded. I really thought it was permanent, that it would never go away. It was when it left me, I was amazed. It was like a miracle. So I had derealization, and this is hard to even imagine. 23 years, and it was much worse when I was on the Klonopin. And during all that time, I thought I didn't know what derealization was, so I thought, well, this is just me. This is how I am. This is normal for me. Well, it wasn't. It's not normal. For me, it was the booze, and then it was the drugs, and then it was withdrawal. And thankfully, it did actually leave me at about, it was the beginning of 2013 probably. So it's been gone about 2.5 years or so, close to 3 now. Let me see. When I was in withdrawal, I remember going to the forums. I had this feeling that the depression and the derealization were linked somehow. That like I couldn't imagine how a person could feel good and happy and be functional and enjoy life while they still had derealization, while they had this dizzy, disconnected, wonky feeling. But in about 18 months into my withdrawal, the depression actually did lift. It was gone. I was living life. I was feeling good, and I still had the derealization really, really bad. But during that time, I remember I would make fun of it because I felt good. I just felt happy. And I would make fun of it. I would like kind of like pretend I was like in outer space or something, and I would laugh and joke about it. See what else? I wrote something else here about it, how I felt then. It was like even at that time, it was still, even though I felt good, the depression was gone. I felt like I was in like this bubble, but it didn't bother me so much. I knew I was connected and that I could reach through the bubble anytime I wanted to, interact with the world, interact with people, enjoy other people, enjoy my life. It was very strange. It was like this magical bubble that I felt like I was in it all the time, but I knew I could interact with the world and enjoy it. So I get a lot of emails and messages from people who they can't imagine feeling happy with the derealization. But for me, I was very capable of doing it. I mean, I felt really good, even though I had the derealization. And when it left me, I was just overjoyed. I really thought it was with me forever. And also, when I started feeling well in withdrawal, I didn't really try to explain derealization to anyone because I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't like being around people. I would just, in withdrawal, I would just whine and complain about how bad I felt. And so people tended to stay away from me. But I remember once I started feeling good, and it was on an Easter morning. I think it was 2013, maybe, Easter. I was sitting up front explaining what I went through to the congregation. I was sitting with our young pastor, and I'm telling about, all of the depression. They understand that, anxiety, all that. But then I got onto this. I thought I'm on a roll here. I could see they were interested. So I'm going to tell them about derealization. I'm telling them about this floaty, not connected. And I remember very clearly they all just sat there and just stared at me blankly. They probably thought I was crazy. I don't know. They probably thought that I had a mental disorder while I was in withdrawal because they looked at me blankly like, what's this guy talking about? So this is one of those symptoms I think you have to experience it to really have any clue what it's all about, what we are going through. We can explain it to other people like we can explain a lot of the other symptoms, and they just don't know. But this one, for some reason, the derealization is the one that bothers a lot of people. It bothered me when I was like having panic attacks and anxiety and depression because I thought it was linked to all of those things, but for me it was not. It was a completely separate issue. And with my derealization was like the off balance, dizzy kind of feeling. But the good news is I had it for 23 years. And I was not in withdrawal for 23 years. It's because I was drinking a lot, like even back in 1990 when it started. I was drinking a lot that was weekend drinking, Friday night and Saturday. So that's what caused it initially. And I just drank the whole way through and got on the psych drugs, and that didn't help. It made things much worse. But it went away from me. And so I am sure that it can go away for everyone. I'm sure it will. That's one that takes time, I think. A lot of people struggle with that one. It takes quite some time, but it can go away and it will. It's just a matter of time, just like all of these symptoms. So I think that's probably good for today. I probably could say a lot more about derealization. I hear a lot about it from emails and messages, and it's a very strange symptom, but it'll leave. Okay, the next video, I'm not sure what I want to talk about. I have lots of things that I could talk about. I get lots of messages with people with various kinds of symptoms. At some point, I would like to talk about. I talked about this white paper that I wrote like right after the book was published, and I did write this as a draft white paper about how I think psychiatry could be done, and I think it could be done in a much better way, primarily without drugs. And I'm thinking maybe I have tried to get people in the movement to read this, and nobody really even wants to read it, let alone maybe be in a work group to work on it. So what I might do is for one of these videos, and maybe two videos, I'm not sure, just kind of like read the white paper. Maybe somebody will hear it and become interested and want to work on it. To me, it's very interesting. It's the kind of work I did when I was an environmental scientist, like very outside the box kind of thinking. I like that kind of stuff, and it's very doable. It's logical. This can be done a whole lot different way, but people just have to grab the rope and start going with it. So hopefully, one of these times I will read it in one of these videos, and somebody will grab onto it and be interested. So that's all for today. Hang in there. You can do this. You will do it. It gets a whole lot better. I promise you that you have the capacity. Your brain has the capacity to get through this. Just keep hoping, because it's going to happen for you. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.